Well, Republican scandals have had little impact on the landscape in Alabama, and Democrats hoping to make gains amid the fallout still face a solidly red state. My guest by telephone is Matthew Tyson. As I said earlier, Matthew is a writer and blogger from Anniston who is also a fellow with Democrats for Life of America. Matthew, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Welcome to our airwaves.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Before I get into your article, your take on what has happened in the state of Alabama this week in just the past couple of days.
It's been a bit of a whirlwind. It's interesting to see, this whole thing sort of come to a head after a year. And and honestly, it's not just Bentley. In my opinion, it's over the past really 9 months, past year.
Mm-hmm.
We had the Bentley issue, which is was the final part of this whole thing to get changed. But I think you also have to keep in mind too that we also dealt with Mike Hubbard
Right.
being convicted, and with Roy Moore as well. So it's I think Bentley sort of the icing on the cake for this year-long struggle we've had with all three heads of the Alabama government, all three who happen to be major players in the Alabama Republican Party as well.
Well, I was struck by your candid writing in your online article titled Way to Blow It, Democrats. I mean, when I read it, I was like, wow. For those who are not familiar with this particular article, explain how the Democrats' lack of public response has impacted the party, and what would you like to see the party, or how would you like to see the party turn things around?
Well, I think the first thing we have to remember, is that the Democratic Party in Alabama is at the weakest it ever has been. And I'm going to say this too. I don't think it's 100% fair to put the entire blame on the party leadership. But when I say party leadership, I don't necessarily mean the elected officials who are Democrats. I mean the actual people, Nancy Worley and Joe Reed specifically, who are supposed to be party leaders themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And but we've had the Democratic Party used to be the dominant party in Alabama. Back when in the South, you still had a lot of Democrats who are much more conservative. A lot of them moved to the Republican Party throughout the 90s and the early part of the 2000s. So that hurt. But of course, they wouldn't really line up with Democratic values, in my opinion, today, anyways.
Right.
But when we talk about having a strong party, you have your voters, you have the people on the county level who are volunteers, who are when they're getting off of work and they're going to county meetings, they're doing everything they can to build things up. But Democrats in Alabama need a strong central state party that leads, that supports the county parties, that supports candidates, and that does more. And so, and we haven't seen that recently with the leadership that we have, and especially in regards to the Bentley scandal and the issues with Mike Hubbard and the issues with Roy Moore and the issues with our state in general. I mean, let's keep in mind that my major criticisms aren't just towards the Democrats or the Democratic Party leadership's lack of action towards this current scandal. I mean, our state has been through a lot of rough patches over the last decade or two, and some of our worst numbers have come out under Republican leadership, and yet the Democratic Party leadership just hasn't been there to take advantage of these issues and try to make Alabama a solid, bipartisan two-party state again.
Right.
And so what we need, really, honestly and truly, what we need is a change in leadership. Mm-hmm. My article that I wrote basically laid out my issues with like what we're talking about, the Bentley scandal and the lack of party response to it. And I think in the early part you mentioned, is now the time for Democrats to make a move? Well, the answer to that question is no. The time to make a move was a year ago. The time to make a move was 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We've missed the mark. So I think what we need now. We have to have a change in leadership. We need new leadership. We need a strong. We need the seats. I mean, we need the seats on the state Democratic Executive Committee to be filled. We got to have. We need new leadership, and we need a stronger party. And then that's where my complaints come in, is that we don't have that right now. And with this great opportunity, the Democrats have to make a comeback. We've missed it. We've completely missed it.
Yeah, you said we missed the Democrats missed the mark 2 years ago. I was thinking, when all of this was happening with the Republican Party, I was like, now's the time to pounce, to jump, to do something, and it's like they've been very quiet.
Mm-hmm, they have.
You haven't heard a word, not a stitch.
Now you've had some elected officials,
a couple, yeah,
who have come out and said what they've said, and they've thrown their criticisms out there, and I commend them for that. But we have to remember there's a difference, between, and when it comes to party leadership. Party leadership, to me, that doesn't mean the people who have been elected.
Mm-hmm.
Party leadership means the people that are supposed to lead the party, the people that are supposed to help those people get elected. So Craig Ford can come out and speak against Bentley, and he did. All the other Democrats can come out, they can speak against Bentley, they can speak against these issues. But at the end of the day, those are politicians talking, and that's fine. But what you really need is actual party members, party leaders, pushing forward. In the article that I wrote, I laid out what could have been, at least in my opinion, and not even in too much detail, really, what could have been a good strategy from day one, what we should have been doing, how we could have controlled the conversation, how we could have changed the pace, how we could have taken advantage of these things, how we could have jumped from criticizing Republicans on especially Bentley and Hubbard on their moral failings and shifting that to focusing more on the issues facing our state. Because the thing we have to remember is that while Bentley was having these affairs and as we know now, committing crimes, while Mike Hubbard was wrapped up in his money laundering issues, the state of Alabama was suffering. The people deserve better than that. You know what I mean? And they do. And we had an opportunity to show them that, and we didn't.
Yeah, the Democratic Party. What is the Democratic Party doing wrong, and what is the Republican Party doing right? Even with, Republican Party has a majority in the Alabama legislature. Have the Republican governor, and even with all of this scandal and resigning and Hubbard and Moore losing their position and Bentley, it just seems like the Republicans are still, figuring out how to get it right, and the Democrats are still just sitting back.
Well, I think as far as like what the Republicans are doing right and what the Democrats are doing wrong, there's, as I said, there's a lot that I think is sort of I don't want to say out of the Democrats' hands, but there's a lot that's kind of out there that we don't have as much control over as we would like.
Right.
And we got to remember that the issue with left versus right in the South, but in Alabama too, stretches all the way back, in my opinion, to the '60s when you had the Southern strategy. When Nixon had the Southern strategy and was focusing on pulling a lot of more of these conservative Democrats and Dixiecrats who weren't really Democrats, and pulling them into the Republican Party. The South is just a culturally conservative area, so anybody who leans more to the left side of the spectrum than the right side of the spectrum is going to be facing an uphill battle. Although there are a lot of Democratic voters out there, that's another problem too. Yes, you have all these issues with cultural conservatism and the fact that the Republican ideology kind of dominates down here. But you also have to understand that there are a lot of Democratic voters in the South. The problem is that they don't vote. We have abysmal turnouts in the midterms and even in the general election. If everyone that went out and voted for Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton in 2008, 2012, and 2016, if they all went out and voted in the midterm elections, I think the case would be a little bit differently. But at the same time, you have to understand that it's really difficult for Democrats to win when they're not running. That's the other problem, is that if you go back and look at the 2014 midterms, there was hardly a Democrat on the ticket anywhere across the whole state. And that, in my opinion, comes back on party leadership. That's a party leadership issue. And it's true. In a lot of ways, we're going to have to get past this left-right thing. That's always going to be an obstacle for Democrats. Like I said, there's always going to be an obstacle, the fact that the South is, and Alabama is very culturally conservative. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to deal with that. But you can't even deal with that until you get people on the ballot, out there talking to people. Because, look, let me tell you this. I watched Jesse Smith, who ran against Mike Rogers this past year.
Right.
All right. Now, he lost, and he lost by a pretty big chunk. But there were a few times where I watched him walk up to people wearing Donald Trump T-shirts. I watched him do this at an event in Anniston one time. It was Donald Trump T-shirts. Walked up to them and started a dialogue with them. And he didn't talk about Republican versus Democrat. He didn't talk about left versus right. All he did was talk about issues. He talked about the problems that were facing the people in this state, and he walked away with that man in a Trump T-shirt telling him that he was going to vote for him, or at least consider it. And that's really, really powerful. If we can get Democrats on the ticket, we can get strong leadership to help get Democrats on the ticket, and they get Democrats talking about issues that are truly facing Alabamians, I think you'll see a change in the political spectrum. There's a lot that has to happen before we can get to that point. I really believe we can control the conversation if we can get to that point. But we can't get to that point until we have better, stronger party leadership.
And you say, another article you wrote, more elected Democrats need to speak out against Worley and Reed. Nancy Worley, the chair of the Democratic Party, and Joe Reed, a longtime Democrat here in the state of Alabama, said more elected Democrats need to speak out. And the Democrats, I'm not sure how long it was, but they had a meeting here in Montgomery, and a lot of the Democrats got up and spoke out about leadership, and it was not it was a heated meeting.
Oh, yeah.
And Joe Reed says there's nothing wrong with the Democratic Party. I interviewed him recently a couple of months ago. He said there's nothing wrong with the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is fine. What do you say to that?
I think that I think that's a very short-sighted view. I think in some areas where there are still areas in Alabama that are blue. Areas in Montgomery, areas in Jefferson County that still are electing Democrats. And if you live in that world, then things might look okay for the Democrats for you. But I'm up here in Calhoun County, all right? I'm in Del Marce's district. I'm in Mike Rogers' district. We really are blue dots up here, you know what I'm saying? So to say that the Democratic Party is fine, I think is not only short-sighted, but you're completely ignoring what's going on. All you have to do is look at a district map. I mean, my District 3, where I live, it's R16. And for anybody that doesn't know what that means, it means that a dining room chair has a better chance from the get-go of winning an election if it runs as a Republican than the best Democrat we can offer right now. All right, that means that any Republican will start with a 16-point lead, pretty much. That's what you can expect. All right, so the Democratic Party is not fine statewide. The Democratic Party is fine in very key, small areas. All right, and I understand that it might be hard to get some Democrats from those areas, who I'm sure Joe Reed helps, and who Nancy Worley may help. I'm sure in those areas it might be hard to get them to speak out, but we got to think about the whole state here. All right, you can't look at what's going on. You can't look at the legislature. You can't look at the Senate. You can't look at who we're sending to Congress and tell me that the Democratic Party is fine. If the Democratic Party was fine, we'd at least be competing. But we're not competing. Like I said, we don't even have people on the ticket in most of these places. I mean, you've got Republicans running unopposed. Their biggest contest is their primary election. So I don't know. I don't know if I don't ever see or hear about Joe and Nancy being around my part of town, my part of the state. But maybe they should get out and travel more. Maybe they should get out and look around a little bit more and see and come and talk and see what problems county parties, the county parties that even are active, are dealing with around here. And I think a little bit of it's projection too. I think that I mentioned this in the article that I wrote that you mentioned a second ago about how more elected Democrats need to speak out. I think some of it might be projection, because it's not just me. there's a lot of us out here. There's a lot of us that are calling for change in leadership, and that seems to be sort of the routine thing. Hey, it's not the party, it's you. I think Joe Reed said the party is not the problem. The party doesn't need reform. There's people that need reform. Well, I don't believe that. I believe that the party needs reform. I believe that people are ready to go. They're ready to get out and go. But without that strong leadership that recognizes that we are weak in the majority of the state, that we're not going to get anywhere. I guess they need to come and talk to some of us up here in Calhoun County and Northern Alabama, and then tell me that the party is fine, because the party is not fine. That's a ridiculous statement in my opinion.
In your article, you said, now, to be fair, a few legislators have made public statements calling for Nancy Worley and Joe Reed to resign. Representative Craig Ford did in October of 2016, as did Patricia Todd way back in 2015. These were good moves, but more Democrats need to step out, follow suit, and keep the pressure up. Honestly, what more has to happen? The evidence is clear. The party is weaker than it has ever been. And if we want a chance at revival in 2018 and beyond, we have to shake things up, and we have to do it now. Do you think it's going to take Nancy Worley and Joe Reed stepping down?
Yes, yeah, I do. Unless by some chance they can, they can reverse every little criticism that has led to this point, and I think at this point, yes, we're gonna need new leadership. We're gonna need invigorated and charismatic leadership. I mean, look, I'm a Democrat through and through. Okay, that doesn't mean I agree with everything the party does all the time, and I understand that there tends to be a big difference a lot of times, especially down here in the South, between state level parties and then the national party. But we got to look out and look at what the national party is doing. There's plenty of issues. I got plenty of issues with the national party. Okay, I'm not saying that the Alabama Democratic Party ain't the only Democratic Party with problems. But right now, you got people out there, people like Bernie Sanders, who are out on the road, and they are doing everything they can. They are traveling. They are recruiting candidates. They are generating a lot of excitement to help Democrats in the midterm elections. We need that kind of charisma and that kind of excitement in the Alabama Democratic Party. All right, we need someone, because here's the thing, and here's why this is important to me. 2018, I think, and I've said this before in past articles as well, 2018 is going to be a really important election. And the reason it's going to be an important election is because right now, the nation is just, I honestly don't know which way it's going to turn. Mm-hmm. With everything going on with our president and what I see as a lot of failures and a lot of missteps, the Democrats have an opportunity to really take charge of the country. Now, the thing is, though, is especially in red states, since 2008, even state-level Democrats, because I got the mailers, even state-level Democrats have had a really strong bargaining chip, and that was Barack Obama. I love President Obama. I miss him every single day. But the Republicans in every level of government used Barack Obama in the White House as a means of getting reelected. They didn't necessarily have to run on merit. All right, all they had to do was run on the fact that they were going to stop whatever Obama tried to do in the state of Alabama. They had that. Well, they don't have that anymore. In 2016, they didn't have Obama, but they could piggyback on Donald Trump, because Donald Trump was a populist candidate and he had a lot of support. They could piggyback on Donald Trump and say, we support Trump and we're going to do this. And then, of course, they also had sort of this backup plan that was, even if Trump doesn't win, that means Hillary Clinton's going to be in the White House, and then you're definitely going to want us conservatives protecting your values from old, terrible Hillary Clinton. Mm-hmm. Well, in 2018, this is going to be the first time in a decade that Republicans in Alabama don't have either one of those things to run on. They're going to have to run on their own merits. They're going to have to run on their resume at this point in time. And what I see happening is they've got two options. They can either hope that people close their eyes and vote straight ticket, which is a very significant possibility, or they're going to actually have to run based on their merits. And that is an area where I think Democrats could be strong, because the state has been in trouble. The state has not seen positive gains like places in the rest of the country. And strong, charismatic leadership in the party that can recruit strong, charismatic candidates can put Republicans' feet to the fire on those issues, and I think win some seats back. This is a different election than what we've had in the past 10 years. This is different. This is new territory, and that's why Democrats have such an opportunity. You know what I'm saying? They have such an opportunity here, but we're not taking advantage of it. And so I agree. So yes, to take care of all that opportunity, to do what needs to be done to really take advantage of the opportunity in 2018, I think Nancy and Joe are going to have to go.
I have to ask you about this. And Nancy, you put in your article the criticism by Nancy Worley, where Nancy Worley said 3 strikes and you're out applies to baseball and to corrupt Republican politics in Alabama. And with today's resignation of Governor Robert Bentley, the Republican heads of all 3 branches of our state government have either been convicted, ousted, or resigned within a year. And you said, hey, I do agree with Nancy here. Her criticism is spot on. But talk is cheap, and you just can't show up at the end of a scandal that's stretched for a year, release a statement, and expect things to be all hunky-dory. Oh my God! And you said there should have been action from day one, which is what you said earlier. They should have taken action from day one, mm-hmm. because it was all out there to be taken advantage of. Mm-hmm. And I wonder, why didn't we see, I guess, commercials or billboards or something? Because everybody didn't read this news release.
Right. Your guess is as good as mine. I think that's what's got a lot of us scratching our heads. Like I said, what more has to happen? We don't know. I don't know what the problem is. I think part of it could be the fact that perhaps they're complacent and comfortable. Perhaps that they're maybe from their perspective they don't see the same issues that we see. Maybe they were hoping that this whole thing would implode on its own and they wouldn't have to do much. I don't know. I don't know the answer. Because I'm not them. But I know that nothing was done. It's bewildering. It is bewildering to me. It's bewildering to a lot of Democratic voters that I talk to. So I honestly, I have no idea why nothing was done. But like I said, something should have been done. And yeah, talk is cheap. I'm on here talking right now, and even this is cheap. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, talk is cheap. Okay, and I can scream until I'm blue in the face. I can tell you that I'm up here working, doing the best I can to support my county party and to do what we can to make a difference in our area. But we got to be on the ground. You know what I mean? We got to be the rhetoric, the talk is good. It gets people to listen. It catches people's attention. But at some point, you've got to turn that talk into strategy. And like I said, yeah, Nancy's right. She is right in the fact that in her criticism of Bentley and Hubbard and more. She's right that it's been an embarrassment to the state of Alabama. We've had someone embroiled in a sex scandal, someone who's actual convicted felon, and then a judge who was taken down for the second time for violating the Constitution of the United States of America, the very foundations that what this country was founded on. We've got a guy who's violated it twice now and been removed from office. And there's so much there to run with. And here's the thing, it would have been a lot of work. It would have been a lot of work to really take all this and build a solid amount of criticism and then turn that criticism into a real political strategy to help Democrats make gains. It would have taken a lot of effort. And you've had a lot of people in the state that have tried to turn that into an effort, but it hasn't been a communal effort. It hasn't been a combined effort. The Democrats in Alabama right now need to be a monolith. They need to be one forceful movement that's working at various different levels. But you can't have all these fractions running around. You got county parties right now that are doing a lot of work. They're doing a lot of work and they're doing the best they can, especially in heavily red areas, but it's not going to make a difference until you've got that strong central leadership at the top and a full council. Again, we've got a lot of empty seats on the SDC, a full council that can come together and that can bring some real strategy. So I don't know why nothing has been done. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if it's perspective. I don't know if it's just laziness. I don't know if it's wishful thinking. Complacency has been an issue with the Democrats across, like the National Democratic Party. I think complacency is what lost Hillary Clinton the election. Not the only thing, but it's one big thing. And so I don't know if it's just something we're going through right now. But there's a strong revival running around across the country right now, and there's a lot of momentum for a lot of different areas in the country, and we need some of that momentum down here.
I want you to take a listen to Dr. Joe Reed. I told you earlier that I had a chance to ask him about the Democratic Party, and it's a little less than 2 minutes, but take a listen to what he had to say, and we'll get you to comment after he's finished.
The Democratic Party is in good shape, and ain't the Democratic Party need reforming? Some of these people need reforming. Some of these folk, they've been leaving the Democratic Party ever since the Democratic Party. We talking about white folk. That's what you're talking about. And whites have been leaving the Democratic Party since 1948, when Hubert Humphrey got up in Philadelphia and said that it was time for the Democratic Party to come out of the shadows of states' rights into the bright sunshine of civil rights and human rights. And since that time, you look at the statistics. There's nothing wrong with the party. The party got a good structure. The party's working every day. And the Democratic Party, white folk leave the Democratic Party long before Nancy Worley got to be chair. They left the Democratic Party in 2010. She wasn't chair. They left the Democratic Party in 1952, 56, 58. They've been leaving the Democratic Party ever since. So, and the reason they left the Democratic Party because the Democratic Party has identified with the civil rights movement, and we're not going to get the Democratic Party to be a majority party anymore until a majority of the folks come back. And now white folk who left the Democratic Party, there's nothing wrong with the Democratic Party. Some folks say, well, the Democratic Party left me, I didn't leave the party. Well, hell, that's true, because they were still holding on to segregation. We left them. They were still holding on to discrimination. We left them. They were still holding on to low wages. We left them. They hold on to unemployment. We left them. Yes, they got left because they were holding on to the wrong thing. But the Democratic Party identified with civil rights. And when it did, that's when the folks left the Democratic Party.
This is 90.7 Perspectives on WVAS. I'm your host, Rob Taylor. My guest tonight is Matthew Tyson. Matthew is a writer and blogger from Anniston, Alabama, and a fellow of Democrats for Life of America. Matthew, your take on what Dr. Reed just said.
Well, he's not wrong. That's the thing. I think I said that early at the beginning of the show. He's not wrong. Mm-hmm. We have to remember there's been an ideological shift in the Democratic Party throughout the 20th century. A lot of people who are now Republicans were in the Democratic Party years ago. Richard Shelby was a Democrat for a long time. He left the party to be a Republican. You had a lot of these people who were already conservatives who left, and so he's not wrong there. He's not wrong at all. You had a lot of white conservatives, especially in Alabama, jump ship and leave the party. But I don't think that's an issue. But that's not what we're talking about right now. What we're talking about right now is, and really, I guess, being a younger person too. I mean, I look out and I look at all of the people my age, the millennial generation, who are sick to death of the Democratic Party in general. And that's not because they're conservative. It's because they want to be Democrats. They want to be they're liberal people, but they don't feel like the Democratic Party is doing anything to pull them in. We got to remember, look. People leaving the party was an issue. Okay, people aren't leaving the party anymore. They left it back in the 90s and the early part of the 2000s, right. Even a little bit halfway. That did happen, and that was a blow. And I recognize that, and Ms. Reed's not wrong about that. But now's the time to figure out what are we going to do about what are we going to do about it? Okay, are we going to sit around and those people aren't coming back. They are not coming back to the Democratic Party. All right, because like I said, there's been an ideological shift. So we got to focus on what can we do to get people to get back with not get back with the Democrats, but to vote Democrat. in a lot of ways, and maybe he's right. Maybe in a lot of ways it would help to get people to at least vote Democrat. I don't think that you're going to get every voter in Alabama, who's a conservative voter who might have voted Democrat at one point in time to come back to the party. But you might be able to flip them in certain elections, depending on who they're running against, or you might be able to energize people who low propensity voters, but people who are out there who will vote for Democrats if you can get them to the polls, or if you can give them a candidate to vote for. See, that's the thing, is that, yeah, he's right. We've lost a lot of people, but that's so what's the next step? Are we going to sit around and wait and hope magically that these people are going to come back? Or are we going to get our boots on the ground? Are we going to do some work? Are we going to start finding some candidates? Are we going to start energizing younger people to vote? Are we going to start energizing these liberal-leaning, low-propensity voters to get out and vote? You know what I mean? Like again, he's not wrong, but that's not the issue right now. That's not the issue anymore. I mean, it happened, and they left for a number of different reasons. But now we've got to figure out what we're going to do to move forward. And so that's not an excuse for inaction. We've got to be active, and that is our biggest criticism. That is our biggest criticism, is the inaction on part of the leadership. What's next? What's the next step? What are we going to do now? Because there's plenty of people, I promise you, there are plenty of people to work with. There are plenty of people that vote Republican, that vote Democrat on a state level, believe it or not. I know them. My mother's in education. I met plenty of educators who are going to vote for Republicans at a federal level, but will vote for Democrats on the state level. You know what I mean? And so we've got to focus on energizing people and get people to vote for Democrats. We've got to get Democrats on the ticket. That's what we need to be talking about. How are we going to do that? And that's what's not happening.
Well, and you've got to have a strong ticket from top to bottom.
Yes.
Anybody out there you think would make a strong candidate to lead that Democratic ticket? Anybody you think would make a good choice to run for governor? I'm sure there are several out there.
There's been a handful of names tossed around. The Republicans got a laundry list of people who are looking to run for governor. Now, back in October, I wrote an article for AL.com, or it might have been before October. It was sometime last year, encouraging Craig Ford to run for governor. I think it was October that he said that he was thinking about it. He hasn't released a statement yet whether or not he's doing it. I know that that the mayor of Tuscaloosa, Walter Maddox, I know that there has been talk, not necessarily from him, but from a lot of people encouraging him to run. Some rumors, some murmurs. I think he's a good charismatic leader. I think both of them would do a great job. The thing that we have to remember too, and let me say this too. This is something else I want to mention too, because I said a second ago those conservatives aren't coming back, and they're not. But I also think that Democrats can't be afraid of a little sprinkle of conservatism here and there. You know what I mean? That's one reason I initially came out in favor of Craig Ford to run for governor, because he's a little bit more of a blue dog without really being someone who's going to jump ship. He's got a little conservatism in him. He's pro-life Democrat, but he's Democrat through and through, and I think that's going to speak to voters. I think we have to understand that the party needs a little bit of ideological diversity in and of itself. But as far as who's going, I don't know. We like I said, it's always those are the two right now that I think, unless somebody else pops up, if I had to pick two names right out of the bat that I think would have the best chance of winning, or at least run the best campaign, whether they decide to or not is yet to be seen. I wish we had a list as long as the Republicans do. I wish that we had been recruiting candidates since 2014. I wish we'd been working on somebody since day one to prepare for running the governor. And they might be out there and they're just keeping coy. I don't know, but we will see. But hopefully we can energize enough and get a good candidate and run a good campaign and potentially make a good run for governor. I think we could make a good run for governor in 2018 if we have the right candidate, the right leadership, and the right momentum. I really do, truly. I know people will shake their head at that, but I really do believe that.
Matthew, I wish I had more time to talk with you, but I'm running a little short on time, and
That's all right.
I really enjoyed talking with you, and of course, enjoyed your articles that we found
Thank
on
you.
AL.com. Great job.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on today. Anytime.
All right, we will be in touch.
Thank you.
All right, that's Matthew Tyson. He is a writer and blogger from Anniston, Alabama, and a fellow of Democrats for Life of America. This is 90.7 Perspectives on WVAS. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk with Sheriff Derek Cunningham. Sheriff